I'm going to make veal stew Marengo. The beautiful veal, nice and lean. It's a little bit healthier eating than beef. Beef usually has more fat. Anyway, I like to use, I love onions and garlic and shallots and the mushrooms. Some people might use a little bit less, but I like that. And the tomatoes. These tomatoes have to be peeled. I use plum tomatoes, and if you don't know how to peel them easily, I have a video on how to peel tomatoes. Anyway, after you cut them in half, after they're peeled, you cut them in half and take out all the meat, and then what's left is diced up, and that will be added a little bit later, not in the beginning. We're going to saute this meat. I have a little mix here of salt and pepper, and we're going to season the veal. And I'm going to turn the pieces over and season the other side. I'm going to put them into the flour, dust them lightly. The veal was patted with a towel, so it's nice and dry. You don't see any moisture on the board. And if you're using frozen veal, you probably would see moisture. Anyway, this is an old-time dish that's been around for a long time. It's not traditionally made with stew. It's made with a nice cut of top round, sauteed, and all the ingredients put into the sauce. You can use chicken stock, veal stock if you have it, or water. So after I dust the veal, we're going to saute it a little bit at a time in this pot, which is just large enough to cook it. I'm not using a saute pan because I want to keep all of the flavoring that's in there into the stew. And then we'll deglaze it with white wine. So let's get started. Now we're going to saute the veal, as you see, dusted in flour like so. And not all of it at once, so you're able to get some nice color. Shake it off any excess flour. Now there were a couple of pieces of veal that the butcher had cut up that were way too big considering the size of the other pieces, so I cut them in half. Now I'll lower the flame a little. I want to get a nice color here. Now once this is done, then we're going to saute, not too hot, see? We're going to saute the onions, the shallots, the mushrooms, the garlic, and I'm using a mix, you don't have to, of Italian herbs, dry. I was going to put basil and what? It's terrible when you can't think at my age. Anyway, that's a nice mix. I just found it in my closet. This will take a little bit of time. Now you could use all olive oil, or you could use all butter, or like I did, a little bit of each. Well, I'm not going to waste film watching this, so in about another 2 minutes I'm going to probably turn the veal. Well, it's almost 2 minutes, so we're going to take a look and we're going to turn that veal over. Now, why did I want to make this recipe? I don't know, I said something veal, and the word Marengo just came into my head because I remember making it many years ago. Then I remember tomatoes, mushrooms, onions, garlic, and what else is in there? So I went online and I looked at the history of veal Marengo, and then looked at about a dozen recipes. They're all very similar, some a little different. And I feel that this is the simplest way to do it, and these ingredients should give it a nice flavor. So after you take the veal out, then we're going to saute the mushrooms, the shallots, the garlic, and the onions, like I said. So we'll come back in a few minutes. Matter of fact, that's how it should look. So now you do all the veal and put it on a plate. Well, depending on your pan and the heat, it'll take about 10 to 15 minutes to saute the veal. So now the veal is done. I'm going to add the ingredients that have to be cooked with the veal, and hold on to some of the ingredients that will be added later. See all of this? That's flavor. Now we'll put the onions. That was my timer, so that was like 10 minutes to saute the second batch. About 13-15 minutes to do everything. The mushrooms, big pieces, but they won't be that large because they're going to shrink. So, okay, where's my knife? Sauteing this. You add the garlic to that mix. And make sure you use fresh garlic all the time. Put the herbs in there. The orange zest. So we'll saute this moderately. We don't have to get color, but this will take about 5 minutes. Let me time that just to make sure, so we all have an idea. And, excuse me, I always say everything has to be seasoned, not just the veal, but everything. So a little salt and pepper in there. And as you see it already, with that amount of veal and this amount, that looks pretty good to me. And in the back, I have the chicken broth simmering. So when I add it to this, it'll just cook right away. It's always good to have it hot. This is going to be deglazed. All right, this will take a few minutes. We'll come back. And this dish, I'm not eating it today. This is the type of like stews. They always taste better the second day. All the flavors come together nicely. Put the parsley in there. And then we have more chopped parsley, a little finer, just to sprinkle over it when it's done. So, this is all set. I use leafy parsley. For me, it has a better flavor than the type parsley, whatever you call it. Then we're going to put in the You're going to raise the flame very high. You're going to put in the dry white wine. And scrape it. And the benefit of saving it for the next day also, it's going to get ice cold in the refrigerator, and whatever fat is in there will be sitting at the top and become hard. And you just pick the pieces off, then you heat up the stew. Scraping this, getting all those little pieces of crumb out. Now let that reduce almost all the way down. Then we'll add the veal. Enough chicken stock just to cover it. If you notice, this pot's pretty good. Even if it was a little smaller, it would be good. But it's easier to play with it, sauteing and everything in this size. And then we're going to put the lid over it. And we're going to bring it to a quick boil and then simmer it. Come back in about an hour and then add the few rest of the ingredients. We're going to take out of here the mushrooms and some of whatever else is in there, or just the mushrooms out. And we'll add the mushrooms and the tomatoes later. So let me reduce this and come back in a couple of minutes. It's been a couple of minutes, so I'm going to remove the mushrooms. We don't need them to shrink up and turn dark. That has a nice aroma already. When it smells good, you know it's going to taste good. I'm still going to let that reduce. Now that's reduced enough. Add the veal. Looks good enough to eat right now, but be a little chewy. Now we'll see how much stock we have to add to that to just cover it. That's all we want. So I'm going to measure it. Well, actually, if it was an hour a pot, it would take less. So this is going to take, that's it, 1 cup of stock. Put the olives in. I couldn't find larger pitted green olives, and I don't want the ones with the pimentos. So there we go. Now all we have to do is cover that. Set the timer for an hour. Raise the flame, let it come to a quick boil. Set this for an hour, and I will be back in an hour to see how things are going. That's the flame I have now. That's on the lowest setting on my large burner. It's bubbling, that means it's cooking. And it makes no sense to try and cook it any faster, to have it even reduce a lot, because if it's cooking, it's cooking, and the faster you cook meat, sometimes it shrinks up. Well, maybe not in roasting, but not in this, but no reason to raise the flame any more than that. Beautiful. We'll come back in an hour. Well, now it's like 55 minutes. Well, an hour has passed and I want to see how things are going. This has a nice aroma. Color's good. See how the flour has thickened things up nicely. We're going to add the tomatoes and the mushrooms. And continue cooking this like for another half hour. And I'll cook it again. Well, it's been an hour and a half. And we'll see how nice, if the veal is done yet. Not yet. So I'll give it another 15 minutes. That will bring it up to an hour and 45 of cooking in the stock. So it took me an hour and 45 minutes cooking in this pot, which has nothing to do with the saute time. The amount of liquid is good. Let's just look at this. I am going to have this tomorrow night with broad noodles. And I'm saving the chopped parsley to sprinkle on top. The sauce has a good consistency. The veal is tender. And I hope you enjoy it.